A classmate named Catherine, who had always looked down on me for some reason, once said, "Oh, he looks as dumb as you. I guess kids who drop out of middle school are also stupid." She was a Harvard graduate and good-looking but had a terrible personality. After looking at my son Ryan's face, she made this hurtful comment. I could tolerate being mocked myself, but it pained me when she insulted my son. Despite my usual patience, I raised my voice and said, "His education level doesn't matter. Just because you went to Harvard doesn't give you the right to speak to my son like that." Ryan then spoke in a cold voice, "Dad, this woman. It's Mrs. Smith, right? Should we fire her?" Although Ryan looked like an ordinary 10-year-old, he was far from ordinary. Catherine would soon realize this. My name is John, and back in the 8th grade, I was a very average student. I was part of the soccer team, sometimes on the bench and sometimes playing. Unlike the noticeable guys, I didn't have a girlfriend. I was just an utterly average 8th grader. I had one strength and one weakness. My strength was math. For some reason, math just clicked for me. I could solve problems without much struggle, even the advanced ones. I was the only one in my grade who could solve some tough problems, and I had held the top rank in math since admission. I especially loved binary numbers. It felt like a fun game to count in a system other than base 10. My weakness, or rather the person I couldn't stand, was a beautiful classmate named Catherine Smith. We used to play together in early elementary school and even visited each other's houses. But around our school trip in elementary school, she suddenly became distant and only spoke ill of me. "John, don't slack off during cleaning. Come on, take out the trash," she'd say, tossing the trash can at me. It wasn't just me slacking off, but Catherine would always target me. "John, don't just stand there. Put out the flame, you're so useless." During her science experiments, anyone could turn off the burner, but Catherine would always complain to me. She'd even say things like, "I can't touch that alcohol lamp now that John has touched it," as if I was something dirty. I wanted to retort, but Catherine was bold, beautiful, and one of the top-ranking girls in our class. I could never talk back and just took her remarks. I always thought that one day I'd prove her wrong, but the only thing I had over Catherine was math. However, she was decent at math and was top of the class in overall grades. Throughout middle school, Catherine kept targeting me, and as fate would have it, we ended up going to the same high school. So my high school life started with the same strength and weakness. Then, during my sophomore year of high school, my life took a 180-degree turn. My father, who was the backbone of our family, passed away. He loved fishing in rivers, and one morning while going fishing, he drove the wrong way on a mountain road and plunged off a cliff, taking his car with him. He never came back. Our family, which had been living a modest and peaceful life, was shattered. I can never forget my mother's face when she received the call from the local police. I'll never forget the pale face of my father when we rushed to the hospital. After my father passed away, my mother, who had always been a stay-at-home mom, decided to work as a temp. But she couldn't keep a job for long because the sudden loss of my father often made her ill. Just when I thought she'd been working for a while, she'd end up bedridden. She'd get better and start working again. Within about 3 months, my mom fell ill again. I couldn't bear to see her go through that anymore. I decided to give up on college and even drop out of high school to start working right away. I wanted to make sure my mom could go back to being a stay-at-home mom. I made up my mind the 3rd time she fell ill. When I decided to quit high school, Catherine, who always criticized me, confronted me. "What are you thinking? Are you out of your mind? Without a high school diploma, you won't stand a chance in society. You have just one more year of high school. Don't quit now. Only a fool would drop out." Despite her strong disapproval, there was no changing my mind. I handed in my resignation that week and left high school by the weekend. After quitting, I first took a part-time job at a local convenience store. Since my high school didn't allow part-time jobs, every day was a new experience for me. It was tiring, but I had committed to supporting our livelihood, and there was no turning back. As I got used to the convenience store job, I began to work part-time at a British pub in the evenings. My mother would cry when she saw the occasional burns I came home with, worried about my erratic lifestyle. Still, not everything about the job was tough. As I continued with my part-time jobs, a new chapter began in my life. There was a woman named Kate who worked as a server at the pub. Kate attended a renowned state university nearby, studying robotics. Kate and I started chatting a little more during the hours when there were fewer customers. It turns out robotics involves a lot of math, and I found the college lectures Kate shared with me really interesting. Gradually, I became interested in robotics. Whenever I wasn't scheduled at the convenience store during the weekday, I'd go to the university with Kate and secretly attend lectures. The classes were challenging with many unfamiliar theories, but I'd borrow Kate's student ID to study in the library afterward. Sometimes I wondered if I'd be attending that university if it weren't for my father's accident, but I found fulfillment in my busy workdays. Above all, experiencing my first love was wonderful. Kate, being 3 years older, seemed very mature. Every conversation with her was stimulating, yet when we'd stroll by the riverbank, her expressions were childlike and adorable. I wanted to protect Kate's smile forever. As expected, Kate went on to graduate school as one of the top students. Many research labs wanted her, and she chose one led by a professor known for tackling challenging subjects. Since Kate's research often extended into the late hours, she quit her part-time job at the British pub, so we no longer ran into each other at work. But every evening, once I was done with my job, I'd visit Kate's apartment, cherishing the few moments we could spend together. Kate's apartment looked like that of a typical science student. Aside from essential furniture and household items, there were piles of specialized books everywhere. By this time, I couldn't comprehend the complexity of the books Kate was reading, but she'd occasionally simplify her research for me. You know, John, after working a few years, you can always choose to go to college, she said. I thought I had given up on the idea of going to college, but it was Kate who showed me that option. Turns out not everyone entering college is a fresh high school graduate around 18 or 19. Many adults do it too. Those who worked after high school and then felt the urge to study more also enroll. But Kate, I didn't even graduate from high school, I mentioned. Kate told me about the GED system. Apparently, even for someone like me who hasn't graduated from high school, if you pass the GED test, you're considered to have a high school level education and can then apply for college. Right now, I don't have the money for college tuition and I'm maxed out just supporting my mom and me, but a new dream was born in me, to save up money and go to college someday. My dates with Kate were mostly in her apartment or on the university campus, but they were always a lot of fun. The university's cafeteria was affordable and tasty, and considering the appetites of college students, they had plenty of large portion options, which was great. Kate loved the parfait from the cafeteria. Every time I bought her one and brought it to her table, she'd be so delighted. I'd often think that if I could earn more, I could treat her to parfaits at fancy cafes instead of the cafeteria. But the joy Kate found in those school cafeteria parfaits made me cherish her even more. Kate would always tell me, if you want to earn more, you can't just work more hours. There's a limit to how many hours a person can work. Instead, improve your skills. If you can earn more per hour, you make more even if you work the same hours. You should focus on learning. I had a tendency to pick up more shifts whenever I saw something Kate might want, but her words made me hold back and consistently work on improving my current skills. I learned to use software I couldn't before and even got a culinary license. Though it cost money to study and sometimes felt like a financial setback, once I got that culinary license, the manager at the pub I worked at praised me and raised my hourly wage. As a result, I was able to buy Kate the necklace she had been eyeing for Christmas. With my improved computer skills, I got a job as a computer class instructor through a friend's recommendation, leaving my convenience store job that I had since dropping out of high school. Teaching computer skills to folks in the community meant a significant bump in my monthly earnings. Around this time, my mom, feeling healthier, started working part-time, reducing the financial burden on our household. Little by little, I started saving money. With savings in hand, I began to think about marrying Kate, and when Kate graduated from grad school in the spring, we joyfully tied the knot. Our life together, as she started her job as a researcher after her postgraduate studies, was incredibly happy. We rented a small place, and whichever of us got home first would make dinner, and we'd eat together every evening. Even the moments just lying together, I felt so happy being aware of Kate's presence beside me. I continued to juggle my jobs as a computer instructor and a part-timer in the pub's kitchen. One day, the manager approached me, saying he wanted me to run the kitchen for a newly opening pub. It seemed I was the only part-timer with a culinary license, so my hourly wage increased a bit. John, let's save the extra money for when you go to college someday, Kate suggested. Even though I wanted to treat her to all her favorite foods, she said, I'm quite content with my current life. You should definitely go to college. You love math so much. Kate wouldn't let me use the money for our date nights. I even proposed sending more money to my mom, but after hearing from Kate about college, she refused. That's how I began saving for college. Then one day Kate, blushing, told me something. I'm pregnant. We were truly at the peak of our happiness. Our son Ryan turned out to be an astonishing prodigy, much to our surprise. Kate and I were both good at math, so we expected him to like it to some extent, but he exceeded our expectations. In no time, he could count from 1 to 100 and started solving quadratic equations even before kindergarten. He quickly became fond of binary, my favorite, and could convert decimals to binary instantly. Kate continued her work part-time, and after finishing her research at the lab and picking up Ryan from daycare, she'd chat with him about math and ways he could understand it. Ryan always listened with shining eyes. By then, I had quit the pub job and had become a full-time instructor at the computer class. Ryan quickly learned to operate the computer I taught him, and he easily outgrew the programming materials for elementary school students. I wondered what kind of person he would grow up to be. One night, while stroking the sleeping Ryan's hair, Kate said this and suddenly began to cry. "Kate, what's wrong?" It was such a cheerful topic, so I was puzzled. Looking at her face with suspicion, Kate clung to me and began to cry. Then she revealed, I've been diagnosed with a brain tumor. I was stunned. Only 6 months left. I couldn't come to grips with Kate's confession and remained silent for a long time. I knew I needed to support Kate, but I couldn't help picturing my father's pale face. Now, even Kate, it reminded me of the atmosphere when my mother answered the phone that day. It was terrifying. "Please tell me it's a lie. Tell me you're just joking." I couldn't accept Kate's illness, and for a while, life continued as usual. Kate went for treatments, but she never talked about her illness since then. I thought maybe we could just pretend it never happened. But one day, a call came from the lab. Kate had collapsed. Lying in the hospital bed, Kate had regained consciousness but was hooked up to several lines, breathing through an oxygen mask. I wanted to look away, but the situation had escalated to a point where I couldn't. "Please look after Ryan," she said. By the time I finally accepted the reality of her words, Kate's condition had deteriorated to a level beyond treatment. For the month before Kate passed away, we repeatedly talked about Ryan's future. Kate apologized to me and Ryan again and again. She had nothing to apologize for. The hardest part was for Kate, having to leave Ryan. Kate often said, "Ryan has an incredible talent," and I felt the same way. I promised her that I would do everything I could to help Ryan harness his exceptional gifts. Kate often took Ryan to the lab, where everyone adored him. She asked me to keep taking him there even after she was gone. With the help of everyone in the lab, I promised to provide the best education possible. At dawn, 6-year-old Ryan held back tears and said, "Mom, Dad, and I will do our best." Don't worry, Kate was called to heaven at the young age of 33. Having lost a loved one twice, I couldn't afford to break down. I had to protect my son Ryan. From that day, we started a new life focusing on nurturing Ryan's talents. Time passed, and as Ryan's 10th birthday approached, we went to celebrate at a famous upscale restaurant known for its traditional dishes. After enjoying our meal, we were satisfied and just stepping out of the entrance when I noticed a familiar face. It was Catherine, an old acquaintance from elementary to high school. She was there dining with her boyfriend. Upon seeing us, the corner of her mouth twisted into a smirk. "Dining in such a fancy restaurant even though you dropped out of middle school. Out of your league, don't you think?" Middle school dropout or not, what's that got to do with anything? I didn't want to provoke Catherine, especially with Ryan around. I tried to leave quickly, but she kept on throwing jabs. "You probably can't even educate your child properly with your dropout status, can you?" I had promised Kate to prioritize Ryan's education, so this really got under my skin. Still, I tried to ignore her and started to leave with Ryan. "Look at him. He's got that clueless look, just like a dropout's child. His stupidity runs in the dropout family," Catherine pushed further. Although I could handle insults thrown at me when she insulted Ryan, I lost it and snapped back. "My educational background has nothing to do with this. Just because you went to Harvard doesn't give you the right to talk that way about my son." "Oh, come on. Is it because you didn't even finish high school?" Catherine continued to mock. Ryan suddenly said in a cold voice, "Dad, this woman, it's Miss Smith, right? Should we fire her?" "What are you talking about, Ryan?" I tried to reprimand him, but Ryan continued. "She's a business associate of my company. She might not know me, but I've seen her. She's from the security firm we've outsourced to, so at the very least I can have her removed from the current project, right, Miss Smith? Ryan, there's no need to retaliate, no matter how much one is mocked, I said, trying to silence Ryan's harsh words. What? How can a kid like this be associated with my company? There's no way you can fire me. Talking your dreams. Clearly shaken by being addressed by Ryan, Catherine snapped back and disappeared into the restaurant with her partner. Ryan, you shouldn't talk about firing someone like that, I advised him, but Ryan still looked discontent. Ryan can be a bit sharp at times. Well, being acknowledged as a member in Kate's lab researching robotics as an elementary schooler and even doing system development, I can see why he might have become a bit assertive and outspoken. But kindness and relationships are the foundation for all. Just because he's a child doesn't excuse everything he says. Especially since he's working with adults on system development, he needs to be careful with his words. Ryan developed a digital photo album app that became a massive hit. With the profits, we set up a company to develop the next app. On paper, I was listed as the CEO, but in reality, Ryan was the one pulling most of the strings. The security aspect of that album app was outsourced, and Catherine worked for the outsourced company. When I reprimanded him for speaking rudely to an outsourcer, Ryan pouted for a while, but when I said, "Mom will cry," he calmed down and muttered, "Sorry." A few days after the incident at the upscale restaurant, a data breach occurred at Catherine's company. Fortunately, the information leaked wasn't directly related to Ryan's app, but we found ourselves dragged into the whole mess. You did it, didn't you? Holding a grudge about that incident before, Catherine accused Ryan of being the culprit. Ryan was, of course, outraged. Feeling indignant, he was determined to find the real perpetrator. Fortunately, the method of the leak wasn't too complicated. It seemed like he'd just have to decrypt some codes and trace back a few IP addresses. With the help of everyone in the lab, when they decrypted the code and tracked the address, it surprisingly led to the computer of Tom, the boyfriend who had accompanied her to that upscale restaurant. When Catherine confronted him, Tom readily admitted that he had someone else do it for him. I was just jealous of how capable Catherine seemed able to do anything, Tom confessed. Catherine had a flashback at those words, remembering a time in the past when she felt inferior to her first love in math and acted mean out of frustration. Catherine had intended to confess her real feelings and apologize for her past behavior when they graduated high school, but he dropped out, and she never got the chance. Even though she was the one at fault, she harbored resentment and said hurtful things when they met again. Catherine came to my house to apologize and shared her story. I was utterly shocked to see the proud Catherine almost bowing her head to the ground in remorse. Her confession that she once had feelings for me was even more startling. It made me realize anew how emotions can become so tangled that they're hard to control. Ryan didn't say much, but he seemed to sense something in Catherine's sincere apology and her vow to help Tom get back on the right track. Kate, Ryan just turned 10 today. We're visiting your grave. Ryan's photo app is still selling really well. The new features are loved by the customers, and the add-ons are selling. I reported in front of Kate's grave. But I did something wrong, Ryan admitted on his own. Some people I work with spoke ill of me, and I retaliated spitefully. Even though I was the stronger one, I ended up bullying the weaker person. Had he truly realized his mistake? As a parent, I felt relieved to see Ryan reflecting on his actions. From now on, I'll be kinder to others. Even if someone speaks ill of me, I won't retaliate. So, Mom, you can be at peace. Kate, Ryan has grown so much, both in heart and body. He's truly maturing. And I have something else I want to share. Kate, I've decided to go to college next year. I plan to study engineering and work seriously on system development alongside Ryan and the others. It would be really reassuring if you joined the development team, Ryan exclaimed with enthusiasm. I used to only be involved in company management, but honestly, I've always wanted to be part of the development, not just for bug checks, but to be deeply involved. I thought going to college would be the best way to achieve that. When I grow up, I'll go to college too. I want to attend the same one Mom did. You already visit college research labs, don't you, Ryan? But you should definitely go to college, maybe even grad school. Yeah, and in the future, I want to be a researcher like Mom. I'll leave the company to you, Dad, Ryan said with a mischievous grin. Kate, he's growing up so strong and capable. It seems like it'll be a long time before I come to see you, but by then, I'll have plenty of stories to share. So please wait for me there, I whispered to Kate in my heart. John Ryan, I will always be watching over you. It felt like I heard Kate's voice carried by the wind. All right, Ryan, let's grab some ice cream from the campus cafeteria on our way home. Yay! Ryan cheered. We started walking hand in hand on our way home, the scent of spring beginning to mingle with the air.